どこにいるの?
Alright, we've literally covered like mostly every existing music genre. Why not move on and we could do like film genres or something? Yeah, let's do it. We're gonna be covering every film genre. Yes, that means everything. And then we're gonna just like, I guess, talk about it, provide some examples, and yeah, it'll be cool. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it. There's like certain subgenres within genres, and I'll like point those out. But yeah, first off, we're starting off with adult content, and well, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's you know. Alright, next up we got anthology, and there's two types of anthologies. We've got an anthology film, which is a film that consists of several different short films, usually connected by a single theme, premise, or brief interlocking event. And some examples of that would be The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, really good, New York Stories, Twilight Zone, the movie, and I would honestly consider Heavy Metal to be an anthology film too. And then there's anthology series, and this is just the same premise, but it's a TV show. And each episode and or season is different, such as 4-Star Playhouse, Love, Death, and Robots, and American Horror Story. Alright, next up we got the crime genre, and in the broadest sense, it's literally crime, and there's hella subgenres of this. So first off, we got the detective subgenre, and this is a subgenre of crime film that revolves around the solution of a problem or crime and focuses on the efforts of the detective or private investigator or amateur sleuth to solve mysterious circumstances of an issue by means of clues, investigation, or clever deduction. You've got Sherlock Holmes, Nancy Drew, Death on the Nile, and the Knives Out and Glass Onion movies. We've also got film noir, and this is a cinematic term primarily used to describe stylized Hollywood crime dramas, particularly those that emphasize cynical attitudes and motivations. The 1940s and 1950s were widely regarded as the classic period of American film noir, and the film noir of this era would be associated with the low-key black and white visual style that has roots in German expressionist cinematography. It encompasses a range of plots, and the central figure may be a private investigator, a hopeless grifter, a law-abiding citizen turned into a life of crime, or a femme fatale, or simply a victim of circumstances. And some examples of the movies would be The Big Sleep, The Big Heat, The Setup, Night in the City, and DOA. Alright, next up we got gangster films, and these are, of course, movies that focuses on gangs and organized crime, and this may involve large criminal organizations or small gangs formed to perform certain legal acts. Some of these are fucking classic, bro. You've got Scarface, you got Bonnie and Clyde, The Godfather, Goodfellas, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, A Bronx Tale, a lot of the Scorsese movies, if we're being honest. The Departed, The Irishman, Black Caesar, literally American Gangster. I mean, come on, it's in the name. Come on, guys. Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, and New Jack City. I'm never gonna cap. I'm realizing that I'm listing off like a lot of American films, and I'm sorry. I'm extremely biased because, well, I am American and I haven't really seen that many international films. So if you've got like, you know, your own recommendations, please list them out in the comments. Thanks. The next subgenre of crime would be heist films, and these are literally stories focusing on the planning, execution, and aftermath of a significant robbery. One of the earliest defining heist films was Asphalt Jungle in 1950, based on the novel of the same name. And while elements of the heist film could be seen in movies like The Great Train Robbery in 1903, the genre didn't really become fully fledged until the late 1940s. And in present day, we've got movies like Ocean's 11, bro, amazing. Really good. Gone in 60 Seconds. Literally, there's a TV show called Money Heist, Reservoir Dogs, Now You See Me. Yeah, tons of good stuff. Alright, another subgenre of crime would be hood films, and these originating in the United States features aspects of urban African American or Hispanic American culture, and the genre has been defined as a subgenre of also gangster and crime films. And some of these examples include Colors, Do the Right Thing, Boys in the Hood, Juice, Straight Out of Brooklyn, Menace to Society. And this genre has also been parodied with such films like Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. Really funny movie. And Friday. And the final subgenre of crime films we're going to talk about are vigilante films. And this is a genre in which the protagonist or protagonists engage in vigilante behavior, taking the law into their own hands. And they're usually revenge films where the legal system fails protagonists, leading them to become vigilantes. Some examples would include The Adventures of Robin Hood, pretty much all the Batman movies, if we're being honest, Kick-Ass, Taken, The Equalizer, John Wick, and yeah, there's plenty more. I mean, it's a really popular genre. Alright, our next genre is experimental films, and this genre is often defined by the notion that the work of art and entertainment does not fit into a particular genre or subgenre and is intended as such. So now this kind of like reevaluates cinematic conventions and explores non-narrative forms or alternatives to traditional narratives or methods of working. Many experimental films, particularly early ones, relate to arts in other disciplines like painting, dance, literature, poetry, or rise. I've seen so many of these fucking like, it seems like it's like just random shit most of the time, but it's, you know what, not bad. A lot of Andy Warhol's works could be considered experimental films. Like there's one film where he just like films the Empire State Building. He sits there and films like the Empire State Building for like an hour or something. Yeah, experimental, man. Alright, our next genre is exploitation films. And these are films that try to succeed financially by exploiting current trends, niche genres, and they're generally low quality. Like for example, there was a film, Child Bride in 1938 that tackled like the issue of an older man marrying girls in the Ozarks. You've got films exploiting drug use like Reefer Madness in 1936, we talked about that. There's a 1969 anti-LSD film, The Big Cube. There's a 1938 movie called Sex Madness, which basically is like you're gonna die if you have sex before marriage, you know, like stuff like that. And there's like a whole bunch of subgenres of exploitation films. You got black exploitation, cannibal films, not exploitations, sex exploitations, like it is, yeah. Alright, next up we got Gothic film, and this is film based on Gothic fiction that contains Gothic elements. In trying to create a Gothic atmosphere, filmmakers have sought to create new camera tricks that challenge audiences' perceptions and work to implement elements that are found in a broader category of horror. Some examples of these Gothic films would be Nosferatu, 1922, Dracula, 1931, Frankenstein, 1931, The Pit and the Pendulum, 1961, Rosemary's Baby, in 1968, and The Orphanage in 2007. Alright, next up we got fantasy, and this is film featuring elements of the fantastic, often including magic, supernatural forces, or exotic fantasy worlds. They're often based on tales from mythology or folklore, and are adapted from fantasy stories or other media. And the boundaries of fantasy genre can overlap with science fiction and horror. We've got subgenres like contemporary fantasy, which is a subgenre that introduces elements of fantasy into a world that closely resembles the time period when it was conceived, such as the Harry Potter films or the Chronicles of Narnia films. And the next subgenre would be urban fantasy, which is a story with elements of fantasy that takes place and deals with concepts and themes related to an urban environment. And some examples would be Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, Grimm, Charmed. Bro, Charm used to smack, bro. And the next subgenre would be dark fantasy, and this is based off of a story depicting elements of fantasy in a hostile and frightening world. And some examples include, and we've touched on this kind of, some examples include Pan's Labyrinth, Dragon Slayer. We literally made a video on all that. Come on, y'all. Another subgenre would be high fantasy, and this is the fantasy equivalent of a historical epic or space opera, and this portrays elements of fantasy in a fictional setting and will include romance, battles, and mythical creatures. And some examples include the most popular Lord of the Rings films and the Game of Thrones TV series. The final subgenre we're going to touch on is fairy tales, and this is literally just adaptations of fairy tales, you know, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, Rapunzel, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella. Yeah, man, you know how it goes. The next genre we got is musical film. This is a film genre in which songs by the characters are interwoven into the narrative, sometimes accompanied by large dance numbers, and these songs usually advance the plot or develop the film's characters, but in some cases they merely serve as breaks in the storyline, often as elaborate production numbers. Singing in the Rain, come on. High School Musical, come on. The Wizard of Oz, come on, bro. Bye Bye Birdie, Mary Poppins, Sound of Music, literally most of the animated Disney movies. Come on, bro. Y'all know how it goes. The next film genre we got is called the police procedural. And this genre presents fictional drama about the lives of police and or detectives. And stories in this genre typically revolve around the crime that has been committed and must be solved by the end of the episode, following a very generic and usually unchanging structure of events. The crime is committed, witnesses are questioned, and an arrest occurs. There you go. Pretty simple. Some examples would include Law and Order, Dick Tracy, Miami Vice, every CSI show, CSI, KFC, you know how it is. Alright, next up we got romance, and this genre is quite literally defined by intimate relationships, wherein plots generally lean on the conflict derived from the pursuit of intimacy and love. Now there's hella subgenres of romance, bro. Oh my god. There's chick flicks, which is often a term associated with romance films, mostly targeted to a female audience, and that would include Dirty Dancing, The Notebook, Dear John, Walk to Remember, 50 Shades of Grey. Nice. And the next subgenre will be historical romance, and this, also known as an epic romance, is a romantic story with a historical period setting, normally with a turbulent backdrop of war, revolution, or tragedy. And this includes films like Gone with the Wind, Titanic, A Very Long Engagement, and Cold War. There's also romantic comedies, which are films with lighthearted, humorous plot lines centered on romantic ideals, and humor in such films tend to be verbal, low-key, and situational as opposed to slapstick. And some examples would be Something's Gotta Give, To All the Boys I Loved Before, yeah, Lost in Translation. Yeah, you know how it goes, man. Alright, next we got soap operas. And soap operas are a genre of television in which shows usually come on every day of the week instead of once a week, characterized by melodrama, sentimentality. And bro, if you see a soap opera on TV, you don't even have to know the plot or hear anything they're saying. You could literally point out a soap opera by the way the fucking lighting is, the way they film it. Some examples include Guiding Light, As the World Turns, General Hospital. General Hospital has gone on since the fucking 60s, which is crazy, but people eat that shit up, I guess. The next genre will be sports, and this is a genre in which protagonists play athletics or other games of competition, and some examples include Remember the Titans, The Longest Yard, and shows like Friday Night Lights and Blue Mountain State. Oh man, that show is hilarious. Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, Rocky. Come on, y'all. If y'all aren't getting hyped up right now, fuck you. Merry Christmas. Alright, our next genre is thrillers, and this is a genre of fiction characterized and defined by the moods they elicit, giving their audiences heightened feelings of suspense, excitement, surprise, anticipation, and anxiety. A thriller generally keeps its audience on the edge of their seats as the plot builds towards a climax, and literary devices such as red herrings, plot twists, unreliable narrators, and cliffhangers are used extensively. Some examples of classic thrillers would be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl, The Girl on the Train, The Woman in the Window, and the British television series Utopia. You've also got a couple subgenres of thrillers, such as mystery thriller, and as opposed to the mystery crime genre, they do not involve or use law enforcement or the justice system as the main characters. Rather, a mystery is defined by the plot and the motivations and reality behind the events that occur in the film. And some examples of these mystery thrillers are most of the films directed by M. Night Shyamalan, Shutter Island, The Invisible Man, and The Sixth Sense. You've also got the subgenre of psychological thrillers, and this is combining the thriller and psychological fiction genres with similarities to Gothic and detective fiction, and these are often told through the viewpoint of psychologically stressed characters, revealing their distorted mental perceptions, focusing on the complex and often tortured relationships between obsessive and pathological characters. Some examples of these films might be Fight Club, Taxi Driver, Inception, The The Lighthouse, Mr. Robot, Requiem for a Dream, and Parasite. Alright, next up we got action and adventure, and there's several subgenres for action and adventure films. The first one being action films, which is just when the protagonist is thrust into a series of events that typically involve violence and physical feats. And the genre tends to feature a mostly resourceful hero struggling against incredible odds, which include life-threatening situations, an indestructible villain, or pursuit, which usually concludes in victory for the hero. Examples of classic action movies would be Mad Max, Enter the Dragon, Seven Samurai, Die Hard, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Another subgenre is superhero films, and these are films that tend to focus on superheroes and their actions. And that's literally all the MCU movies, all the DCEU movies, every superhero movie you could think of. Another subgenre of action adventure is disaster movies, and this is a film genre that has an impending or ongoing disaster as a subject primary plot device, and these disasters may include natural disasters, accidents, military or terrorist attacks, or global catastrophes such as a pandemic. Some examples of these might be Twister, Independence Day, Dante's Peak, and Contagion. Another subgenre of action adventure is girls with guns, and this is the action films and animation that portray a female protagonist engaged in shootouts. The genre typically involves gunplay, stunts, and martial arts action. And some examples of these would be Martial Angels, Black Lagoon. I don't think Alita really counts because she doesn't use guns, right? I don't know. Another subgenre of action adventure are war films, and this is a film concerned with warfare, typically about naval, air, or land battles, with combat scenes central to the drama. And themes explored include combat, survival and escape, camaraderie between soldiers, and the futility and inhumanity of battle. Some examples of these are 1917, Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket, Platoon, The Pacific, Forrest Gump, kind of low-key, Band of Brothers, All Quiet on the Western Front, Red Tails, The Patriot, and Dunkirk. The next subgenre of action and adventure would be spy films, and these deal with the subject of fictional espionage, either in a realistic way or as a basis for fantasy. Every James Bond movie, bro. Kingsman, Austin Powers, even though it's kind of a parody, Jack Ryan, Mission Impossible, Charlie's Angels, Spy Kids. Yeah. Alright, and moving on to our next genre, we've got animation. And I didn't really think animation could be considered a genre, as I thought it was just like a medium. But I guess, I don't know. And some subgenres of animation include traditional animation, which is one of the oldest animation subgenres, and this is created by way of animating a cartoon by drawing and painting pictures by hand, and they are put in sequence at the right speed, giving the illusion of movement. And some examples of these include The Lion King, Spirited Away, a lot of the early Studio Ghibli movies, and early Disney movies. Another subgenre of animation would be animated series, and this is literally just like animated cartoon series, and that would include Tom and Jerry, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Simpsons, Avatar: The Last Airbender, all of Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon. You've also got adult animation, and this is animation with adult themes. I mean, I guess you could group in anything from like Comedy Central, Adult Swim, and then you could go as far as to say as like, you know, that other side, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. Another genre of animation is CGI, which includes animating on a computer modeling program, and models of characters or props are created on the computer and then programmed to do something specific. Some examples of these would be Up, Toy Story, Sausage Party, Over the Hedge, all that good stuff. Another subgenre of animation is anime. And anime is a form of hand-drawn or computer-generated animation originating from Japan. And it really just refers to specifically to animation produced in Japan. And some examples of these anime would be, I don't even know where to start. You've got Naruto, My Hero Academia, Hunter x Hunter, Attack on Titan, bro, 10 out of 10 anime, bro, watch it. The ending is fucking depressing as shit, but still, watch it. Sword Art Online, Violet Evergarden, oh my god, is this gonna turn into an anime video, bro? Another subgenre of animation is stop motion. This is similar to traditional animation, and instead of using hand-drawn pictures, stop motion films are made with small figurines or objects that have their picture taken many times over a sequence of small movements to create animation frames. Some examples of these are A Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, Corpse Bride, Chicken Run, Early Man, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Oh, that movie is so good. Oh my god. There's some stop motion animation in the Clash of the Titans in the 80s movie, and it looks so funny, bro. It's so good. Alright, our next genre is comedy, and well, yeah, it's a category of film that emphasizes humor. They're designed to amuse audiences and make you laugh. Of course, there's different subgenres. We've got action comedies that combines aspects of action and comedy. And some examples of these are 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, I guess kind of some of the MCU films, Deadpool, Rush Hour, Ride Along, The Nice Guys, The Other Guys. Yeah, you know how it goes. I found another subgenre of comedy, and it's called romantic comedy. And apparently this takes the formula of a typical romantic comedy, but focuses on male friendships. And some like examples of these are apparently Dude, Where's My Car, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Superbad, Pineapple Express. It seems like, quote, romantic comedies are literally just like stoner comedies. Huh. I don't know. You've got parody films, and oh my gosh, you know how much I hate these. We've talked about our good share of parodies. They're literally just like copies of other films, but made to try and be funny. All the Scary Movie series, all those epic movie, disaster movie, all those 2000 spoofs. Oh man, you know how I feel about those. And the last subgenre we're going to cover in comedy is slapstick. And this is a style of humor involving exaggerated physical activity that exceeds the boundaries of normal physical comedy. And it may involve intentional violence or violence by mishap, often resulting from inept use of props such as saws and ladders. And some of the most popular examples of these slapstick comedies are The Three Stooges, Charlie Chaplin's movies, Mr. Bean, Tom and Jerry, and The Benny Hill Show. Alright, moving on to our next genre, drama. This within film is a type of narrative fiction intended to be more serious than humorous in tone, focusing on in-depth development of realistic characters who must deal with realistic emotional struggles. The next subgenre of drama would be legal drama, and this presents fictional drama regarding legal practice and is defined by lawyers and judges, and it sometimes overlaps with crime dramas and police dramas. Some examples of these would be 12 Angry Men, A Few Good Men, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. Alright, the next subgenre of drama is medical drama, and this is based on the inherent drama involved among the inner workings of hospitals, medics helping patients, doctors, medical staff relationships, and the medical industry. Some examples of these would be, you already know, Grey's Anatomy, House MD, The Good Doctor, and Saint Elsewhere. And the last subgenre of drama we're going to cover is political drama, and this is a genre of films and TV shows that involve a political component, whether reflecting on the creator's political opinion or describing a politician or series of political events. Some examples of these would be West Wing, House of Cards. Does White House Down count, or do we have to like make a subgenre called action political drama? You could literally fit White House Down in there and Olympus Has Fallen. I find it really funny that there's two movies that exist about blowing up the White House. Alright, our next genre is historical films, and this genre includes works that deal with either accurate representations of historical accounts or fictional narratives placed inside an accurate depiction of a historical setting. And one of our first subgenres is alternate history. And this is a genre defined by rewriting of historical events for the sake of speculative outcomes. And some examples of this are Inglourious Bastards and The Man in the High Castle. Our next historical subgenre is biopic, and this is a story detailing the life of a real person, either spanning a large portion of the subject's life or focusing on a particular period of significance in their life. Some examples of these include A Beautiful Mind, Catch Me If You Can, Saving Mr. Banks, The Theory of Everything, Gandhi, and Man on the Moon. The next historical subgenre is a historical epic, and this is a dramatized account of large-scale event that provides assumptions that fill in gaps in the account or revise the account in some way. And some examples include Troy, Braveheart, Kingdom of Heaven, and Spartacus. And I guess 300, kind of. It's a little bit dramatized. Alright, our next genre is horror, and this is a genre that works to try and elicit a negative emotional reaction from viewers by playing on your primal fears. Horror films and shows often feature scenes that startle the viewer, and the macabre and supernatural are frequent themes, and thus they may overlap with fantasy, supernatural, and thriller genres. Our first subgenre of horror is found footage, and these works feature footage that appears to be an existing and informal recording of events with the purpose of simulating real-life horror. Some examples of these are The Blair Witch Project, VHS, Cannibal Holocaust, Paranormal Activity, and Cloverfield. Our next subgenre of horror is ghost, and these are works that use spirit or soul of deceased creature to introduce elements of horror. This includes Casper, the Friendly Ghost, Spooky, Annabelle, The Conjuring, Insidious, The Ring. Does The Ring count? Yeah, I think The Ring counts. Our next subgenre of horror is monster or creature features, and this is a story about deformed or supernatural creature, or a set of creatures that terrorize people. The only requirement of this genre is that the antagonist be categorized as a monster. Some examples of this are Godzilla, Jurassic Park, King Kong. I can't remember, but there's like a movie where they're just like attacked by a swarm of bees. It's dumb. Our next subgenre of horror is psychological horror, and this is a subgenre that focuses on mental, emotional, and psychological states to frighten, disturb, or unsettle the audience. It uses mystery elements and characters with unstable, unreliable, or disturbed psychological states to enhance the suspense of the film. Some examples of these include Get Out, Hereditary, Babadook, Black Swan, and The Shining. Our next subgenre of horror, and probably the most popular, is slasher, and this is a horror genre featuring a serial killer or other psychopath as an antagonist who methodically kills a number of protagonists in succession. The victims are typically in isolated settings and often engage in sexual activity previous to the attacks. At least that's how it was in like the early 80s movies, because sex was bad. And the slasher would kill their victims by sneaking up on them and then stabbing them or slicing them to death. And gender roles in these slasher films are of particular interest in feminist film theory, as they extensively use the examined trope of the final girl. And examples of these genres include the Halloween films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, Child's Play, Nightmare on Elm Street, Candyman, and Scream. Our final subgenre of horror we're going to talk about are zombie films, and yeah, it's literally just about zombies, man. There's tons of examples, man. There's Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, The Walking Dead, Shaun of the Dead, House of the Dead, Train to Busan, World War Z, 28 Weeks Later, The Last of Us, and Resident Evil. Alright, our next genre is science fiction, and this is a film genre that uses speculative, fictional science-based depictions of phenomena that are not fully accepted by mainstream science, such as extraterrestrial life forms, spacecraft, robots, cyborgs, mutants, interstellar travel, time travel, or other technologies. And our first subgenre of science fiction is cyberpunk, and this genre is defined by a mixture of desperate society oversaturated with crime that takes place in a high-tech world that includes cybernetic organisms, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. And some examples of this are Blade Runner, Elysium, Altered Carbon, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and Dread. Our next subgenre of science fiction would be dystopian, and this is when stories feature a world or society that serves as a contradiction to an idyllic world. Often there is a centralized and oppressive government or religion that dictates the value of citizens on a dehumanizing level, and may or may not incorporate a destructive event that drove to the creation of this institution. And some examples of this include Trojan of Men, Hunger Games, Battlefield Earth, Maze Runner, Planet of the Apes, District 9, and Mad Max. Our next subgenre of science fiction is military, and this depicts the use of science fiction technology, including spaceships and weapons, for military purposes, and usually principal characters are members of a military organization, usually during a war, occurring sometimes in outer space or on a different planet or planets. Some examples of these films include Battle Los Angeles, The Expanse, Predator, Starship Troopers, and Battlestar Galactica. Alright, our next subgenre of science fiction is space opera, and this is defined by a mixture of space warfare, travel, adventure, and romance. Set mainly or entirely in outer space, it features technological and social advancements, or lack thereof, on a backdrop of galactic empires and interstellar wars, with fictional aliens, often in fictional galaxies. And some examples of these are Star Wars, Star Trek, Final Space, and Rebel Moon. Even though it hasn't come out yet, but I already know it's gonna be so fucking good. I can't wait. Alright, then moving on to our next genre, Western. And this genre is usually set in the American West and embodies the spirit and struggle and demise of the new frontier. This uses stock characters such as cowboys, gunslingers, and bounty hunters, often depicted as semi-nomadic wanderers who wear usual cowboy hats, bandanas, spurs, all that type of stuff. And our first subgenre is, going back to science fiction, space western, and this usually just uses the themes and tropes of westerns and combine it with science fiction stories in an outer space setting. Some examples of this are Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star, and The Mandalorian. Our next western subgenre is epic western, and this usually emphasizes the story of the American Old West on a grand scale, and they are commonly set during a turbulent time, especially a war. And some examples include The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West, The Wild Bunch, Django Unchained, The Revenant, Heaven's Gate, and The Hateful Eight. That rhymed. And our final subgenre of Western is spaghetti Western, and this is a broad subgenre of Western films that are produced in Europe. And it emerged in the mid-1960s in the wake of Sergio Leone's filmmaking style and international box office successes. Some examples of these spaghetti Westerns are Once Upon a Time in the West, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, again, the original Django in 1966, and Day of Anger. Alright, our next genre we got are documentaries, and these are feature-length or near feature-length films depicting real-world events or person, and they're also told in a journalistic style. I mean, there's tons of documentaries, like all the Planet Earth documentaries are really good if you just want to look at like pretty nature things and listen to David Attenborough. Alright, next up we got infomercials, and apparently this is a genre, and these are television commercials that generally include a phone number or website, and long-form infomercials are typically between 15 and 30 minutes long, and short ones are like 30 seconds to 2 minutes. You've 100% seen these. Wait, do people still watch cable? Alright, the next genre is reality film and reality TV, and this is unscripted work featuring non-actors interacting with each other, dealing with an invented or contrived challenges such as competing to win a prize or just going about everyday life. Some examples of reality film are Survivor, Love Island, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Alright, our next genre is talk shows, and these are usually television shows in which one person or group of people discuss various topics put forth by a talk show host. Usually guests on a talk show consist of a group of people who are learned or have experience in relation to whatever issue is being discussed on the show for a particular episode. And there's several major formats of talk shows like late night shows, breakfast television, all that type of stuff. Alright, our next genre are cooking shows, and this is a television program that presents food presentation in a kitchen television studio. And over the course of the program, the show's host, who is usually a celebrity chef, prepares one or more dishes over the course of the episode. Some examples of these are MasterChef, Hell's Kitchen. There's also talk show-esque cooking shows like The Rachel Ray Show and Martha Stewart's Cooking School. The next genre are game shows, and this usually depicts a real contest, typically a trivia competition or physical challenge with rewards and prizes or money. Many of the participants are often ordinary, everyday people, and this includes shows like Let's Make a Deal, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Price is Right, and Wipeout. Alright, our next genre is news broadcasting, and this is the medium of broadcasting various news, events, and other information via television. Yeah, I mean, it's the news. CNN, NBC, BBC, Pause, ESPN, Fox, CNBC, however you ever get the news, man. And our final genre we're going to be talking about is sports TV. This is the broadcasting of sports events or live coverage of sports as a television program, and usually involves one or more sports commentators describing events as they happen. I mean, football, hockey, soccer, or football, again, sorry, excuse me, basketball, baseball, bowling, boxing, volleyball, golf. I mean, you fucking name it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like a handful I didn't cover, especially like subgenres. If you want to get really nitpicky about it, there's films that I didn't include in specific genres. So yeah, please recommend each other films in the comments. Recommend me films in the comments. I'm a big science fiction fan. Dune is probably like my favorite movie. Really into that whole vibe. But yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you guys for watching. Happy holidays. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, love you guys.